Hey everyone, this is Angie Lee. Today I'm here with Katie Doran. And Katie, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, so like Angie said, my name is Katie Doran. I am a program manager at Microsoft on the HoloLens team. We just announced HoloLens at the end of January. It is super, super cool. If you're interested in that project specifically, you should go to hololens.com and find out more about it. But today I'll be talking with Angie just about my experiences as a woman at Microsoft.
All right, thank you so much. First, I was wanting to ask you about maybe if you would mind sharing a moment that you failed, because I found in my experience as a student and throughout various programs that we really learn a lot about through failure. Would you care to share a time that you failed and maybe what you learned out of that experience?
Um, Me. You actually fail a lot when you're in computer science. I think people have probably noticed this, but computer science is all about failure. You're constantly writing the wrong code and finding bugs that you then have to go and solve. You're signing up for classes that end up being a terrible fit and not meaningful. Um, it's just full of failure. There are tons of examples I could use, but I'll actually use one from before I was even in computer science and kind of how I got into the field. I picked several majors that were a terrible fit for me. Kind of one of the biggest failures is I graduated high school wanting to be a film major. I had seen so many amazing documentaries as a kid, and I wanted to create documentaries like that because it seemed like a great way to change the world. And then I went to a school with no film program, which is a pretty significant failure. I just picked the school. I actually, disclosure, I followed a guy to college. This guy I was dating at the time, and ended up at a school with no film program. Um, and then had to figure out what I wanted to do with my life because my whole plan had been negated. And it worked out really, really well because I sort of floundered through communications and through psychology, and pure happenstance ended up in computer science. So that failure became an opportunity because instead of sticking it out in some path that was a dream I had as a high schooler that probably wouldn't apply to me as an adult, I was forced to really think about what I wanted to do and what it was that appealed to me about film and where else I could find that and really analyze those choices. So that was a really great failure for me, and it brought me into the field that I love and get to work in today.
And that's really interesting that you shared that because I actually feel like I've had a similar experience where coming into to Berea College, I wanted to minor in film, so it was really interesting that you shared that. And I wanted to major in business, but I didn't feel right in the business department and ended up trying out some introductory computer science courses and really stuck with it throughout. So I wanted to press you a little bit and see if you might share a little bit more about what got you into the first computer science classes.
Yeah,
What got you hooked?
I'd always liked technology without even really understanding what it meant. I played video games all through all of my childhood, like Prince of Persia, like on our first
Yeah.
desktop computer back when you saw giant CRT monitors. I played a lot of PC games. I was a diehard Sims addict. My first console was an Xbox, and I played a ton of Halo. In big group parties with friends. I built my own desktop computer so that I could play World of Warcraft more
Wow.
performantly. I had this nerdy streak, but it never struck me as something that I would do as a job. It just didn't seem like it was for me. And then I find myself in college, and again, there was no film program. Communications didn't speak to me. It was the intro classes in communications are a lot about just how to talk, and I wasn't learning a lot in those classes. So I ended up in psychology and just ended up in a class that I couldn't stand. And I was like, if psychology is like this, it is not for me. So I had a bunch of friends taking computer science classes, and I was like, well, at least I'll get to hang out with my friends. And it was just the perfect balance of creativity and problem solving. Like you could solve that problem in any way you wanted to, and you could be really creative, but there was still a right answer at the end. And I always really loved math in grade school because of that component of you could be right, you could actually be done and find a
Yeah.
solution, and still having this element of creativity. So I really enjoyed it. It was just fun to write code. But kind of the turning point, I went to an advising appointment, and there was a poster outside of my advisor's door, and it was the National Science Foundation, so NSF, sponsors these research experience for undergraduates. They're called RAUs. They are held at universities across the nation, and essentially it's a research internship. So an undergrad can be placed in a research lab and essentially be a mini grad student for a summer. They're funded, you might get to publish your first paper out of it, and one of the programs was educational video games. So I just applied. I didn't think I would get in, but I did. And my mentor for the program was an awesome faculty member at our university who happened to be a female in computer science. And we were making educational games to teach people who might otherwise never know computer science existed that computer science was a thing and that they could do it. So it brought together so many cool things because here's this area of need where we don't have enough people just in general majoring in computer science, and particularly among women and minorities. So there's a need that could be addressed. And it was super creative because it was game design and development, but it was super logical and problem oriented because stuff had to actually work. So it brought together all of these interests for me and all of these passions for me, and I obviously never left. I stayed in that research lab for many, many years working with that same professor. It was awesome. And if you find an opportunity, research is really, really cool. The REUs are really, really cool. Any internship is amazing because all of the stuff you're learning in your classes, it makes it real. You get to apply it. So I
Right. Something
highly recommend
applied.
people seek out those opportunities because that's going to be the thing that kind of you'll know if computer science is right for you because you'll get to see how you get to use it in the real world.
Hmm. And especially, you're so lucky that you found something that you could apply that you felt really passionate about in the end because he's kept sticking around, right?
Yeah, I've been very, very lucky. I've had amazing mentors in all of my internships throughout my education. I've had really, really cool projects that I've gotten to work on. The team I'm on now at Microsoft is my first team at Microsoft, and I'm working on something amazing that's going to change the world. So I've been very, very fortunate, and I hope that for people who are just getting into computer science, that my passion and energy for my role at work, for the things I've encountered being in CS, help them kind of stick it out through some of the classes that aren't that much fun or that seem really challenging, because it is a really, really fun place to be. And there's so much opportunity to do cool stuff and find your passion somewhere in computer science.
Yes, I agree completely. Uh, so the next question that I wanted to pick your brain at is if you could give advice to your younger self, what what advice would you give?
Um, I would maybe just like maybe pull from Sheryl Sandberg's book, just tell myself to lean in. I remember in high school, I I was kind of that annoying know-it-all, and I actually had friends tell me that I was being an annoying know-it-all, so I did worse in classes intentionally, so that people would still
Oh.
like me. I didn't like being seen as like the bossy one who got everything, or I just didn't want to be that annoying know-it-all girl, like the Hermione of my schools.
Hmm.
Which is actually like Hermione's an awesome character, right? Like that should be something to be proud of. And I think I would probably be further along if I'd really applied myself instead of backing away from my potential in fear of intimidating people. Um, so probably that's like a long answer to give my younger self. Maybe the concrete answer would
Excuse
be
me.
that people who are going to matter in your life are going to value your awesomeness. And if you're doing awesome stuff and you're being awesome and you find just a ton of critics, those people probably don't matter. They're not the people who are going to matter. And seek
Mhm.
out those people who support you to do your best and be your best instead of letting yourself get discouraged and not reach your potential because of that.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. It's especially out of something. There's that Dr. Seuss quote. Are you familiar with that line from Dr. Seuss? So
Which
I
one?
think it's um, those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. And I think that's
Yeah,
perfectly
is that in
wraps
all the
up.
places you'll go?
I don't know. I just seen that
I
quote.
think so. I keep a copy. All the places you'll go is like a very common like high school graduation present. But I actually keep
Hmm.
a copy of it on my coffee table because it's a really great book. Every now and then people should just sit down and read that book because like it's a good reminder of like, oh yeah, I'm awesome and I should do awesome things and surround myself with awesome people. Because it's surprisingly easy to forget to do that.
Right. And there's also some study that I'd come across that says that you're a combination of the five people that you spend the most time with. So absolutely you shouldn't be spending any time with somebody that kind of makes you feel down about yourself. So
Yeah.
that's really great advice to share. I'd I'll have to find that and share. I don't know about the science behind that study, but I think that it's partially true.
I think it's particularly important to surround yourself with supportive people. When you're a woman in computer science, you're in the minority. In I think the statistics from 2012, out of 100% of all undergraduate degrees, I believe, and I'm from memory, so I might be off by 1 or 2%. All undergraduate degrees, 54% went to women. So women own, in fact, a small majority of all undergraduate degrees that women are earning across all fields. In computer science, women are only earning 18% of the degrees that are awarded in CS. It's this really, really small number. So you're going to be in the minority. And there's a lot of people who are really great people. They're good people. They don't mean any harm, but it's going to start really, really young. With things like the Game Boy being one of the most successful handheld consoles. It has the word boy in it. like, as if
Yeah.
you need a clear indication that video games are for boys, that's in fact the product name. And kids on the playground saying, well, that's what boys do. It's going to be through high school with a really well-intentioned guidance counselor saying, well, are you sure that that's the class you want to take? Maybe you'd rather take this that's maybe a little more stereotypical feminine. It's going to be your parents being like, well, do you really want to spend your money on that computer or wouldn't you rather go shopping? Like, and really well intentioned. They genuinely think you'd rather go shopping. You might encounter someone who isn't as well intentioned and just straight up says, I don't think women can do computer science. Um, Hopefully that doesn't happen. I have had that happen to me, and I've had friends that's happened to, and they're not necessarily bad people. They just hold interesting beliefs about the world. And in that situation, then you're going to look and think, well, what is the future for me? You're going to look at industry where women still hold less than a quarter of the computing jobs in industry and very few of the ones in senior leadership positions. And all of this messaging that computer science isn't for women and this concrete evidence that there aren't women in the industry starts to feel like maybe that's true. In that environment, it becomes that much more important to have a group of people who are going to be really supportive of you and your goals and encourage you because you might need the extra encouragement. And it's great to not have to ask for it and to have people who just know you well enough to know when you might be feeling a little down or a little discouraged about things. And it's also super important to be that person for the other people in your life. If you see someone struggling, if you see someone who's feeling just super discouraged about their career paths or how classes are going or how they're measuring up against their peers, to be able to step in and encourage them is a really great thing to do. That kind of those kind of mentor relationships, those strong peer relationships make a huge difference in keeping people in this really exciting field. So surrounding yourself with people who just pour positive encouragement onto you and are super supportive of you and your skills and your potential is incredibly valuable.
Yes, thank you, which is why I'm so glad that you are here to share, take some time out of some of your advice for young women in computing. I think that about wraps up for the question parts of this session. Do you have anything that you might want to add before we close out?
Um, yeah, sometimes school, like if you're in college, you look back at high school and you're like, "Oh, I didn't need half those classes. It was maybe like not the most fun I've ever had in my life. Might not have been high school. And you might feel that way right now in college. Like, am I ever going to use these classes? What is this for? And I just pause every now and then and look around the world at everything that technology does. Where in our lifetimes there are going to be self-driving cars. All of our medical records, all of our financial records are all stored in with some method of technology. Um, there are so many really, really cool things happening, and by sticking with it, you get to be a part of it. And it's only accelerating. Like the progress we're making with technology, it just is getting insanely fast. So not only do you get to be a part of the things that are happening right now, but you'll get to envision where you see technology taking the world and make that happen. Um, Computer science is one of the few places that I've encountered where you can just have an idea and just like sit down and write the code and make it. There's nothing
Right.
stopping you. There's so many places where you would really have to get funding first, or you would have to jump through all of these hoops to make something. And in computer science, you can just do it. And that's awesome. So if you don't love all of your classes, like find a side project. Find some volunteer program where you get to use your skills in the real world and apply them and make it meaningful to you. And just keep in mind that the light at the end of the tunnel is an incredibly bright one, full of potential, where you really get to shape the future for all of mankind, all of womankind. And that's really, really cool, and it's worth sticking it through classes.
Thank you so much for your time, Katie. I'm
Yeah,
really glad
thank
that
you
you
for
were able
having me.
to meet with me today.
Yes, thank you
All
so
right.
much.
You have a great night. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
All right. Talk to you later.